Buenas noches, mis niños y mis niñas. I hope you're all having an amazing day today. Vengan a chismear de mientras que le hago some little chicken breasts to my daughter, making her dinner, and this is her favorite. She loves to have chicken breast with a little bit of rice on the side, so bienvenidos. Okay, let's talk about my journey on how I became a teacher. That's a question that I get over and over on TikTok, so I'm like, what better way than to talk about it while estamos haciendo de cenar? So let's get into it. So let's see, I'm picking a seasoning, so bear with me, I'm multitasking. So I worked so many different jobs as a teenager. I worked at un puestecito en el Swami, that's where I started. Then I started selling shoes at the indoor Swami, and then from the indoor Swami I started working at, my parents always had like a puestecito in the Swami. On a side note, you guys want to know what my favorite, like all-time favorite seasoning is? I'm going to show you. This is my all-time favorite seasoning, Nor de tomate. But I just call it Nor Suiza. If you're Hispanic, this is Nor Suiza de tomate for sure. I have el de tomate and we have el de pollo. These two, my go-to. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. That was my first weekend job. I would get dropped off on Saturday and Sunday, and I used to work there, and I really enjoyed it. I did that for a while. I did that for a while, and then from there, I graduated high school when I was 17 years old. Due to bullying, people were so mean to me, and I'm sure this is something that we've all experienced, so I begged my mom to homeschool me, so I did my junior and senior year together, and I was able to graduate a year earlier. I enrolled myself into the community college, and I started going to school. I used to ride the train to school, and it became a lot. It became a lot. So I would go to I would go to school, and then I found a little job as a waiter in a restaurant. And I did that for like 2 years while I graduated with like my AA. While I graduated with my AA, I was working, I was in college, y luego me enfermé por el stress. I ended up getting shingles, and I'm from the generation that I had chickenpox 2 times, so therefore, due to high stress, I got shingles. Viejita at 19 years old. So then after that, I decided I didn't know what I was going to do after. So I ended up leaving the restaurant, and I started working at Vallarta supermarkets. I started as a courtesy clerk, like the person that bags your groceries y te la pone en el carrito. That was me for like a year. And then from there, I got a promotion to the bakery. Fun fact, I know how to like bake and decorate and all that crazy stuff thanks to Vallarta. So shout out to Vallarta. So I was not happy there, to be honest. I was not happy there. I was there for a few years, and then I'm like, you know what? It's time to go back to school. Like, I'm going to enroll myself into school. Again, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I still didn't know. Like, I've always known I wanted to be a teacher my whole life, but I wasn't really thinking about that in that moment. I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. Another fun fact, I love science. I love anything that has to do with science. So I'm like, maybe I started looking, and I applied to a university, and I enrolled myself for the science program, bachelor's of science actually, and I started going to school. I was still working, so I was working, going to school, and I was super busy, which I am so grateful for. But in the midst of this, like 2 years and a half into school, I met my daughter's dad, and I got pregnant with my daughter, and we ended up moving in, and then I gave birth to my daughter, so I ended up taking a break from school. If any of you have kids, and any of you women out there have experienced postpartum depression, it's hard, and it's a really tough time, and I was just unhappy, and I was so sad all the time. And I'm Hispanic, so a lot of like my family, like my parents especially, like that's like, ay, no estás triste, ponte a limpiar, nomás estás aburrida. And it was like that kind of thing at first until they finally understood. And then I ended up getting pregnant with my second daughter, and then things were just worse. So my little sister, she convinced me, and she says, you know what, I need you to go back to school. I will help you with the girls. Like, you for sure need to go back to school. So thanks to her, I was motivated to graduate. So I ended up graduating. So I'm really grateful to my sister because she helped me, and she motivated me, and she helped me through that entire journey. And I am so grateful for her. So then in the midst of me graduating and being a mom, we ended up separating. I ended up separating from my girls' father, and at this point now I'm a single mom. I had just graduated school. I have 2 little girls, and I needed to figure out what I was going to do next. So I'm like, it's time to start applying. And crazy thing is, I ended up working at a hair place. I ended up at a beauty supply. And I loved working there. I learned so many things about hair and texture and product, and it was a great time. It was only girls working there, so I met so many different girls, and it was just a great time. So after that, I needed more hours, so I applied for a different position within the school district, and a month after that, I went to the interview, did the entire process, and then I was offered the job. It was a 5.5-hour job without benefits. So it was more than the hours I had. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. I'm like all about learning new things. So I decided to take this job. I was at the middle school for 2 years. And again, it wasn't enough because I didn't have benefits. I had 2 little girls. It wasn't enough hours. So I started looking for a different job that would be like a supplemental. So I ended up with 2 jobs. So now I have the school district job, and then I applied at a emergency adolescent placement facility. And it was a facility for young men between the ages of 12 and 18. And I remember that I was always running around, me sentía como gallina sin cabeza. I was always running around. I would get off at work from the school at like 12:30, and I would go in the bathroom and change, and then like drive off to the second job. And I did that for an entire year. And again, I was away from my kids, and I missed them. So I'm like, okay, what's next? I need to find something else. So the high school's hiring. So I applied to the high school, and I applied to the high school, and I'm like, okay, I went through the entire process, and then I was able to, I went to the interview. 2 months later, they called me, they offered me the position, and I was actually the secretary there for an entire year. And, my principal and I became really close during this time, and I tell her one day, like, I was so nervous, and I'm like, hey, can I book a meeting with you? And she's like, yeah, what happened? And I tell her, like, I really want to be back in the classroom. I love working with children, and I love the opportunity, but I really want to be in the classroom. And she says, great. What degrees do you have? Let me see your resume. Like, let's start looking for schools. Like, let's do it. So she really helped me, and I started looking at schools. We did the entire process, and then a few months after that, I'm enrolled in a program. I take the CBEST, I take the CSET, and now I'm in a credential school. So now I'm enrolled in a credential program. And I started doing that, and then she tells me, hey, we actually need a long-term sub. Why don't you apply for that? And this could be your first year in the classroom. And I'm like, okay. So I applied for it. In my first year of teaching, I was a long-term sub for the school that I was already working at, and I loved it. It was a crazy year. It was a hard year. That year I lost a student due to violence. And that was a really tough year, and I felt that if I was able to get through that, because this is a student that him and I were really, really close, and he would stay after school, and, it was just a really sad situation. And if I was able to go through that, I'm like, I can do anything. So I graduated with my credential, and then I was offered a permanent position. I know it sounds like really short because I made this video really quick and I didn't really go into too much details, but I think what matters is how we get to the end. How do we get to the finish line? Like, I think that is so important, and I tell all my students now, I know that it's okay to not know what you want to do when you're 17, when you're 18. it took me how many years to decide that, okay, this is where I want to be. And this was my entire journey that came with me being here. So you don't have to go to a university. You don't have to go to a college. You don't have to go to a career tech school. You can do whatever you want. Just make sure that you take care of you. Make sure that you do something that makes you happy every single day of your life, and that you're going to wake up and feel passionate about it, where you don't feel like it's a chore, you know? So that's my advice for me to you. So again, I am so proud of myself, and I'm so proud of the journey, and I'm so happy to be where I am today, and so positive about things. And I can't wait to see what my future has in store. I can't wait to see what I do next. And yeah, so thank you for being here with me on this journey, and I want you to have an amazing day. Muchas gracias, mis niños y mis niñas, por escucharme, to listen to me ranting. So make sure that you subscribe. Have an amazing rest of your day. Hasta luego.